Welcome to Trashmagination, a podcast about reimagining trash. I'm Carla Brown. Today we're talking about t-shirts. I have creatively reused t-shirts in a lot of projects over the years. This month I had two experiences that gave me even more ideas for what to do with t-shirts. But before I share those stories, I wanted to tell you about some mind-blowing facts about the environmental impacts of t-shirts and other garment production. In the show notes, I'll embed a TED Ed video that shows a t-shirt's life cycle. It says that it takes 2,700 liters of water to grow enough cotton to make one t-shirt, and that cotton plants rely on more chemicals than any other crop in the world. Organic cotton makes up less than 1% of cotton grown in the world. And from 1994 to 2014, garment production increased by 400%. In addition, there are many concerns about the labor standards for those who sew t-shirts and other garments. In this fast fashion world where clothes are very cheap, people tend to buy way more than they could ever wear. Those facts illustrate why we should likely reduce the number of t-shirts we consume. And later in the podcast, I'll mention a whole bunch of project ideas for your existing t-shirt collection. But first, I want to tell you about some activities I have been doing in the past month related to t-shirt creative reuse. Now, I personally don't have much experience with garment sewing, and I have found that t-shirt or jersey fabric can be challenging to sew. I haven't experimented with adjusting my own t-shirts to fit me better, but I became intrigued with this idea after meeting a one-of-a-kind taiko performer and composer named Chris Bergstrom. If you have been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I play taiko with the group Nendaiko. If you want the whole story, you can listen to episode 12. But in case you missed that one, Nendaiko has been performing around the Washington, D.C. area since 1994. Our big performance season is coming right up this month with the cherry blossoms that bloom around our region in March and April. We perform at festivals every weekend starting around mid-March. Getting back to how this relates to t-shirts, a month ago, I attended a Meet the Artist event with Chris Bergstrom. He lives in California, so it was exciting to meet him on the East Coast. Obviously, most of my attention was on his fascinating style of composing and playing taiko. But for the purpose of this podcast, I want to focus on what Chris was wearing. Chris dresses very consistently in a t-shirt and shorts. I have watched him play on many videos, so this was not the first time that I saw him wearing this clothing. However, being in the same room with him, now I had time to really examine his shirt up close, and it looked like the sleeves were made from 3 sections. There was a regular short sleeve, a central sleeve, and then an extra long sleeve that could wrap around his thumb. After his performance, someone asked about his sleeves, and he noted that he likes to adjust the fabric of the sleeve, but sometimes around his thumb, and this affects the sound that the drumstick or bocce can make when hitting the drum. And playing with sound quality is a big part of what Chris does. Later, I researched and I found that Chris had written a paper about taiko costuming where he talked about his pursuit of the perfect taiko shirt. This document is called Interpreting Tradition, The Exciting Possibilities of Taiko Costuming. In the essay, he reviews the history of costuming as well as his own designs. Anyhow, most of you don't play taiko, but I wanted to take these ideas and apply it to my everyday experiences of wearing clothing that doesn't feel quite right. And even though I'm not sure I want to make my own clothes, I am noticing the trend of home sewing and me-made clothing. I've been hearing about this through a podcast called The Crafty Planner, hosted by Sandy Hazelwood. In one episode, she interviewed Sonia Phillip, who developed basic patterns for her project called 100 Acts of Sewing. I admire how she mixes patterns and layers fabrics to make really unique designs. In another episode, Sandy interviewed Meg McElwee of So Liberated, who started her pattern company making aprons and tunics for her Montessori classroom. Inspired by these stories and Chris's shirts, I tried sewing 2 shirts together, and I quickly found that this was not going to be easy. I did not like my first experiments. I don't have the same body shape as Chris, and so I'm going to have to really think creatively and adjust it to like the results. I searched on Pinterest for ideas, and I added some of the ideas that I thought might work to my board about the creative reuse of t-shirts. In particular, I would like to make a lot of my t-shirts longer in the body, because when I'm drumming and I raise my arms above my head, I don't want my shirt to come up too high. I think that tackling this question of sewing shirts together is really interesting. First, I think it could spur creative solutions to our overconsumption of clothing if we took some of Chris's attitude that the shirt must be perfect, and we can make it perfect through experimentation. Why should I have 30 shirts that I don't really like? If there is one that I do like, perhaps I can deconstruct it and adjust the others to follow its lead. If we customize our existing shirts, maybe we'll stop buying more in this never-ending search for the perfect shirt. We have all experienced buying a shirt that fit great in the store, and then it gets all wonky after we wash it. Why not customize shirts that are already washed so we already know how that fabric responds to laundry? Here's an idea for those of you who might not want to take apart a whole shirt, but you do want to salvage the graphics on the front of a t-shirt that is falling apart. My friend Maggie used to have a business where you mailed her your favorite t-shirt that was falling apart, and she would take the design and sew it on a fresh new shirt. There are many businesses who will take your t-shirts and make them into quilts. In the United States, this is a popular high school graduation gift for a student to take to college, so they can remember all the fun things they did back home. Moving on to a new t-shirt reuse topic, each month I try something new with creative reuse, and this month it was an experiment related to t-shirt yarn. This is when you cut a t-shirt into one long spiral and then roll it up into a big ball of yarn. This is a great way to reuse t-shirts that you definitely do not want to customize. I am not new to t-shirt yarn. Some of my early weavings on my floor loom were made with tie-dyed t-shirts because it creates this awesome gradient effect. This month, the new technique that I tried was to sew swirls of t-shirt yarn down to fabric. I learned later that this is called couching in embroidery jargon. I sewed the swirls onto upholstery samples because I figured that that is very strong fabric, which could stand the density of stitching. Once I had a bunch of swirls sewn down, my mom suggested that I added beads. I have a stash of beads that people have given me, which I barely use. So I started sewing those on, and I'm sure my mom did not mean to fill in every single square inch with beads, but that's what I did. And I decided to make the whole design a circle. By the time I was done, it felt like a medallion or a coat of arms. The colors and textures were so rich. Once again, I discover a new addictive craft using the materials from my own home. I encourage you to check out my first 2 medallions made from recycled t-shirts in the show notes and on my Instagram and Facebook feeds. I also made my grandmother a little Valentine's brooch with 2 hearts. Now, those were my 2 big experiments for February related to t-shirts, but I have collected many project ideas on a Pinterest board. The most popular idea related to t-shirts is to make it into a shopping bag by sewing or tying the bottom of the t-shirt, cutting off the sleeves, and then using the shoulders as handles. In the show notes, I'm going to link to a whole bunch of other great ideas, and I'm just going to describe some of them now. First, in the category of clothing, I found an Instructable about making a washable diaper, which I wish I had known about back when I had little babies, because I bought a lot of washable diapers, and this looks like a very reasonable project to undertake if you have a sewing machine. There are these beautiful skirts made by sewing t-shirts together. And there's also these toddler lounge pants that you make from an adult t-shirt, and those look super comfy. Another popular t-shirt reuse idea is to make headbands. And then there was a beautiful dress that a young woman made by sewing, kind of like how I did my couched t-shirt swirls. She did it all over a dress, so it looks like the dress is covered by roses. And then a project that I think is fantastic to do at a summer camp is to make a drawstring backpack from a t-shirt. You can also make some beautiful housewares from recycled t-shirts. There are lots of rug ideas. There's shag rugs, there's woven circular rugs on a hula hoop, and there are crocheted rugs. There's also baskets that you can make by coiling bits of t-shirt yarn. And then I really liked a design for something called a knot pillow, where somebody took a t-shirt and sewed it into a long tube and then tied it into knots. There's lots of fun seasonal crafts that you can make from recycled t-shirts. I will link to one that's a bunny craft in case you want to do that for the springtime. There are giant pom-poms. There are beautiful Christmas tree ornaments. And there is a beautiful, I don't know if it's beautiful, but pretty cool looking Halloween spider web. And then the last category of projects relate to personal care. A lot of people cut up t-shirts to make tissues, and they might even make little boxes around the house called hanky hampers where you can put the tissues after use so they can be washed. Some people make face wipes from t-shirts, and I'm going to link to one that actually talks about including some witch hazel and some other ingredients in order to make the face wipes work better. Some people make reusable dryer sheets. Some folks make feminine hygiene products, and some folks make hot and cold packs or hand warmers from t-shirts. And finally, I will embed a video in the show notes that shows how somebody insulated a tiny home with t-shirts. If you want to purchase items made from recycled t-shirts, I encourage you to check out an organization called Rethreaded. This company hires survivors of human trafficking, both locally and globally, to make beautiful items from recycled t-shirts. They are best known for a product called the Grace Scarf, which looks like many strings intertwined. And they are currently partnering with Southwest Airlines to make jewelry from recycled leather seat covers. Rethreaded is located in Jacksonville, Florida, but they sell their items online around the world. I also admire an artist in Maine called One Woman Studio who makes T-skirts. Yep, those are skirts sewn from recycled t-shirts. So I hope you are inspired to creatively reuse your t-shirts. I am sure this will not be my last word on this, as I want to create my own perfect Tyco t-shirt. If you have creatively reused t-shirts in an unusual way, please let me know at trashmagination@gmail.com. Until next time, may you see t-shirts as a source of art in your life.